Yes, the bike actually works. You can drive it around and it's usable. It's Hey guys, welcome back. What an exciting day. So much has happened with this test server update. We're going to go over a couple things. Today we are going to go over some options in the option menu because I actually found some that are interesting. And I'm going to be focusing on the new vehicle mechanics and the sounds, which are really, really neat. I think they did a great job. So my goal here is to first and foremost deep dive into these two items. And if you like it, I hope I earned your subscription today. And this is actually the first of a couple videos I'll be putting out where I deep dive into this patch and this release to show the different mechanics of all the different things that they release. So if you want to follow those and know more about them, again, be sure to subscribe so you can get updates on when those videos come out. To kick things off, when I very first opened the game, right off the bat, it looks terrible. Now, my settings are all on low, admittedly, all on very low except for anti-aliasing. Brightness is all the way turned up and looks really bad, so let's just put on some reshade and see if we can liven things up a bit. That's much better. This just looks so much better to me. If you're curious about the reshade settings I use, you can check this video right here, and I go into depth how to get this look and at least give you a foundation, if you don't like this look, give you a foundation of the items I use so you can tinker with it and get a look that suits you. But I up the brightness, the clarity, and the color without taking a huge FPS hit. So before we jump into any of the gameplay, I wanted to take a look at the menu first, because while a lot of things were spelled out in the release notes about what was going on in the patch, the menu has a ton of changes to it. So let's go through that, because I really want to show this to you so you can be familiar with it. So let's jump right into the settings menu. So under the graphics settings, nothing new, that's the same. Okay, let's move on to control where it gets nice and juicy. So this first section is completely the same, but then they added a gamepad section, so you have your invert X and invert Y for those of you weirdos who like the inversion. I just don't understand it. Dead zone, and then because gamepads aren't as sensitive as mice are, you can't fine-tune it as much. They are single-digit adjustments versus the more fine-tuning of the mouse. So common is exactly the same, but in ready for combat, it's a little bit different because they took out increased zeroing. They put that in a different section. Otherwise, it's exactly the same. So another change here, they added the section ADS, and this is completely new. This is where they moved the zeroing to. And for those of you who haven't read the patch notes, in brief, the 8x and the 15x, you will now be able to zoom in and out, so a maximum of 8x and 15x. I don't remember it saying how low it'll go. I assume down to 4 for both of them. But you do that with the mouse wheel. If you're using a red dot, a halo, or a 2x, then the mouse wheel is used to brighten or dim the reticle. You can dim it if you're indoors or in a darker area, or if you're outside and it's really bright, you can brighten the reticle, and so it makes it easier for you to see outside. And then the hold breath and reset zeroing options are right here as well. They also added a tiny little section purely for the throwing. We hopefully know that by now. If you don't, you can cook the grenade by hitting R while you're holding the mouse button. Next, we move on to the item section, which is exactly the same. That has remained 100% the same. And then the driving section is what is different. They had it grouped into a big chunk before, but they've broken it up into more specific options. So while driving, this is all going to be pretty straightforward. But the seat change, I think, is interesting. In the previous one, they only had, I think, 5 seats that you could change to, but now they have 10. So I don't know if they are placeholding that for something else, or if that is a hint to getting some kind of bus. I don't know. If you know anything, let me know in the comments below, but I haven't heard anything about it at this point. But I think that's really interesting. And then motorcycle has its own section with the E and the Q for lean left and right, left control and spacebar for forward and back. And then the rest of the options, the swimming, UI, sound, team spectator, and observer modes, these are all exactly the same. So that is actually it for control. If we move over to sound, it is exactly the same. You can ignore that. And gameplay, the icon kill feed, you can toggle that on and off, and then map zoom sensitivity. But other than that, it's pretty much the same. So that wraps up this main menu. Thanks for bearing with me, but I think it was important to go over these different control options because I think there is a lot of interesting stuff in there. So now, what do you say we jump into some gameplay? We are going to take a look at every single vehicle in the game and I'm going to go over all the differences that I was able to find with them. So to start off, let's talk about the boat. Actually, there's nothing really to talk about. It's the only vehicle I could find that didn't change at all, so moving on. However, the three-wheeled motorcycle is finally amazing. Kind of. In all reality though, when I got booted off here, I didn't take that much damage, at least not nearly as much as I normally would have, and when the motorcycle's upside down, for some reason it slides really far. But I found a little trick: if it does flip upside down, just put yourself in the driver's seat, and bam, it magically pops right back up. This actually happened to me on 2 occasions in the same exact game, but on both occasions I didn't take nearly as much damage, and it's probably not the best way to showcase how much better the motorcycle is now, but I promise, it is so much better going over terrain. I actually feel like it's a usable vehicle when I'm driving around the map, which makes it so much more reliable, and better when you finally see one on the map, you're not afraid to hop on and go off-road with it. I mean, just look at this footage right here. I would never dare go across this field with these tiny little bumps before, but it's actually manageable now. And something else to note, obviously, is the sound. Personally, I love all the sound changes they made with all the vehicles. I think it adds an extra layer of depth, and I think they just did a phenomenal job. Both motorbikes sound the same. It would have been nice to use that as an opportunity to add a little bit of variance, but I guess they are the same bike. One just has a sidecar, and I like what they've done with it. I do think that the 2-seater bike got a speed nerf. I can't get up to 154 like I did before, but overall I think what they've done with the bike's overhaul gets a thumbs up from me. And sorry for the difference in the brightness and the colors as we go through. Some of the footage was recorded before I put my reshade settings on, and others were after. But now we have the Dacia, which has 2 major notes. First of all, it's a diesel engine, which I think is interesting that they threw that in there, but that makes sense, and the shifting is super slow when you listen to it, but that doesn't affect your gameplay. And secondly, it's very heavy feeling. As you take turns, especially if you're going at high speed, it wants to drift and get away from you real quick. So just something to note as you're driving it around. I think it does go a little bit faster. I'd have to look at numbers to see the top speeds again, but overall, it is more realistic feeling, and I like the sound that they chose. Now the US is pretty straightforward. They moved the seating to 4 seats, and they added a big, beefy diesel engine. Also, it does get up to a much higher speed. Before I had issues breaking 100, and now it doesn't seem to have any issue breaking 100 on an open stretch. And again, it also feels very cumbersome and very heavy as you're driving it around. So when you're going those top speeds and you try to make those minute turns, expect it to slide a lot. Lastly, we have the buggy, which, as you can tell, far and wide has the best sound improvement. This thing just sounds really great. The handling is much the same as the other vehicles, where you can feel that it's heavier. And one thing that I also noticed as I was driving it around is the handbrake with every vehicle feels much tighter. So if you want to 180 slide right into your parking spot, or wherever you want to go, you're going to be able to do it much easier with the new patch. But the buggy feels great, it sounds great, does well off-road, goes nice and fast, and I think it's a great way to round out and emphasize just how all these vehicles got a drastic improvement in my eyes, and how they're just going to be much more viable in the game. So let me know what you think in the comments below about the new vehicle dynamics. And again, if you feel like I've earned your subscription, and I hope I have, please hit that subscribe button and follow the channel for more content just like this. I like doing these types of deep dives, and in regards to the recent patch, I will be doing a few more. The next one I'll be focusing on the reticles and the zooms and how those are going to factor into gameplay. And then of course I'll be going into Vault and all of that sort of stuff. There's a lot to cover with this patch, and I really want to get through it. So thanks for stopping in, guys. If you haven't seen one of my other videos, because this is your first time here, you can see a couple of those right here on your left. And I hope to see you again. This is Mike with Things You Might Like, and I will see you with my next cool thing.